May 27th, call the Winnebago County Board meeting to order. Tonight, we'll be writing the location of flag by board members in Park. Watching over our community and city. Thank you back for giving us the great wisdom we need to lead. Taking care of our community. United States of America.
But to be one nation, both liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sergeant. Come out, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder for all board members, please speak clearly and directly into the microphone. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Webb.
Present.
Mr. Salgado.
Present.
Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Rena.
Here.
Mr. Billett. Mr. Booker. Mr. Yukita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Here.
Mr. Girl.
Present.
Mrs. Gorel.
Present.
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Thank you all, Mr. Chairman. That is 20 present.
Thank you, Clerk. I'm out. Agenda item 5, award presentation, public hearing, public participation. We had no one has signed up. So we have none above. Fine. Approval of the minutes. Approval of the May 22nd minutes. To approve from Mr. Hoffman, second by Mr. Neighbors. Discussion.
Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Red.
Yes.
Salgado.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena.
Yes.
Mr. Village. Mr. Booker.
Yes.
Mr. Yukita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Yes.
Mr. Girl.
Yes.
Yes.
Girl.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. 20 yes.
Item 7, consent agenda, the raffle report, and other report. Second.
Mrs. Red.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Red, that's approval for the consent agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Salgado.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena.
Yes.
Mr. Village. Mr. Booker. Mr. Yukita. Mr. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Yes.
Mr. Girl.
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors. That's 20 yes, Mr. Mayor.
Those of you who are on Zoom, right, if you want to speak. Item 8, appointments. I think our whole 30 days, I think it's rules. 14, cemetery of Tectonic Board of Trustees. These are reappointments. John Burns, Thomas Doherty, Aaron Denoho, Carol Diane Parker, Stephen Burns. Mary Ann Doherty, David Gill, Kelly. Question on that. And we'll move on. Item B, zoning board of appeals. Delayed over 30 days, a 5-year reappointment. Brian Erickson. Finally, Harlem Cemetery Association to be laid over, your reappointment, James White.
Yes, thank you. I would like to single out the zoning board of appeals for Brian Erickson. I'd like to suspend and give him direction. Like to approve Brian. He's done a stellar job for the past several years. And he's indicated he would like to continue.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend on the appointment of Brian Erickson. Second by Ms. Crosby. Discussion? Right there.
To suspend the rules. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Salgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Pistone, Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Arena, Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Butita, Mr. Crosby, Ms. Sellers,
Abstain. I can't hear anything. I can't hear what we're voting on.
So ready to remedy that. Any other board members on Zoom here? Okay. Anyone else have
Sorry, we still can't hear you.
repeat that? Bill? Is there anything you can do? Hold on. So, fellas, you can't hear any of us, or me? Fellas, can you hear me now?
Much better.
Yes, I can hear you. That's much better. Thank you.
I apologize. All right, so we are voting on suspending the rules for the appointment of Brian Erickson, a reappointment of Brian Erickson to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I would vote yes if we're at me in the roll call.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? You can hear me now. Okay. Mr. Girl,
I'm a yes.
thank you. Mrs. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Red.
Yes.
Thank you all. Mr. Chairman, 20 yes.
Okay. Pass it. Oh,
That's-
suspend the rules. I apologize. Okay. Mr. Webster. Okay. Motion by Mr. Webster, second by Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy. Discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, clerk I'll please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tassoni, Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Billich, Mr. Booker, Mr. Vitita, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Fellers,
Yes.
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Red,
Yes.
Mr. Salgado.
Yes.
Thank you all. Mr. Chairman, 20 yes.
Okay. Appointment passes. All right. Item 9, report to standing committees. First, Finance Committee, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee has one item tonight to propose. Bear with me as I pop up my my agenda, that item here. So bear with me. I apologize. Let's see here. All right, the Finance Committee would like to present an updated ordinance establishing the property assessed clean energy PACE program. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to move to suspend the rules and vote on this today.
Okay, we have a
A
motion.
second.
Can I have a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Fellers, Mr. Hoffman. Clerk I'll please call the roll on the suspension.
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni, Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Billich, Mr. Booker, Mr. Vitita, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Fellers,
Yes.
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel, Mrs. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Red,
Yes.
Mr. Salgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
One more time for Mrs. Gorel.
Yes.
Thank you all. Chairman?
Okay, the rules have been suspended. Item is before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So then I'd like to move to approve the updated ordinance establishing a property assessed clean energy PACE program, and I so move.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have
A second.
Second by Ms. Fellers, Mr. Westcott. Discussion. Mr. Vitita.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I don't say heard the program. I just have the one point that I think is about the authorization for $500 million worth of. So, if we approve this evening, are we able to determine later, date, are we be able to modify roll the authorization. Larry White, with Chapman and Cutler, the bond counsel. Larry, can you answer Mr. Bukita's question, please?
Yeah, actually, I couldn't hear the question. Could somebody please repeat it? Was it related to the authorized borrowing amount?
Yes, can you hear me now?
No,
Try getting right at the top of the mic.
Not
Okay,
real well.
So, nice.
Much better. That's much better.
My question is it the $500 million authorization or authority to borrow? If we decide to reduce that amount in the future, are we able to do that?
Yes, absolutely. The $500 million acts as a total cap on the program. And if at any time the board wanted to reduce that amount, it could. Each financing that that closes will count towards the 500 million. So for example, we have one that'll close in the next couple of weeks. That's about $1.5 million. That'll leave quite a bit of authority left, but you wouldn't be able to reduce the 500 million down to zero. You would still need to leave enough in to cover the existing borrowings.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Was there, Mr. Kelly, did you have a question? Did we see your hand up? I'm sorry, I thought you did.
Mr. Chairman, Angie Gorel.
Go ahead, Ms. Gorel.
I thought that if I remember correctly, it was mentioned that this is for commercial properties only. Is that correct? And as I went through the short version here, I don't remember it referring to just commercial properties. It didn't say any type of property. It just kind of gave us, the basis for it, but didn't specify the types of property. Did I miss that within what I was reading?
Mr. White?
No, so under the, that's a very good question. Under the Illinois PACE statute, only commercial properties are eligible for the program. So although the ordinance doesn't specifically distinguish, because the state statute only authorizes commercial projects, this program will only authorize commercial projects.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Gorel. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Chairman. The red line version I read seemed to be substituting the program administrator for the county board in a lot of situations, as far as decision making and whatnot. Who is the program administrator?
Mr. White?
We happen to have Mark Pike as the program administrator with us today from the IECA, and I can let him introduce himself. And
yeah, the Illinois Energy Conservation Authority, we are the program administrator for the county. We're the ones who sign the administrative service agreement and perform the work associated with, approving applications and checking for the energy modeling associated with each project. We give that recommendation to the board for your approval. And then after that, transactions are typically closed through Chapman and Cutler. We also perform a servicing role where we'll update the treasurer on the amount to put on a tax bill and to make sure it reconciles at the end of each year.
Any follow-up, Mr. Kelly? Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, clerk Amal, please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips. Mr. Booker. Mrs. Peta. Mr. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Yes.
Mr. Earl.
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Webb,
yes,
Mr. Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Stoney.
Thank you, Clerk Drumell. The item passes. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Okay, next is the zoning committee, Mr. Webster.
thank you. The zoning committee has got one item on the agenda this evening. It's a layover. This is SU 0221, special use permit, and this is for Edwards Orchard. An update to the special use of the, this is in County Board District 1. This came with the recommendation of approval unanimously from the zoning board of appeals and also from the zoning committee. And for first reading.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Webster. Mr. McDonald. We have a motion to suspend. I have a second. Mr. Mr. Prescott, Mr. Booker. Clerk Drumell, please call the roll.
Mr. Westcott, Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bukita, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Sellers,
yes,
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Mrs. Goral,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Wed,
yes,
Mr. Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Stoney, Mr. Webster,
Yes,
yes.
Thank you, Clerk Drumell. The rules have been suspended. The item is before us.
thank you. Therefore, I would move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second? Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Lindmark. Discussion?
I'll just say a little bit here. It's a good thing for all of us here. I think everybody in the planet here knows Edwards Orchard. We've been working under a special use permit from 30 years ago. All this time, they've been doing a lot of things, a lot of improvements, and great operation and that. And so it came to light there that they wanted to do some more improvements, whatever. A lot of things they were doing were under their special use permit. So this brings everything in line for them, and it's good to go for another 100 years. This accompanies everything that they possibly are doing right now.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Jim, don't forget conditions.
Ms. Worrell, go ahead.
Thank you. She's reminding all of us that this comes with the conditions, we're approving this with the conditions. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you, Ms. Worrell. Any further discussion? Okay, Clerk Drumell, please call the roll.
Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bukita, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Sellers,
yes,
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Goral,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Ms. Wed,
yes,
Mr. Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Stoney, Webster,
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk Gamal. The item passes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to give a shout out to fellow committee members on this. They came prepared, and through the background on this, and they read the minutes of the meeting. So we went to the record, and so our entire committee meeting lasted 3 minutes and 52 seconds. Thank you, fellow committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Weston. Okay, up next, Economic Development Committee. George?
Thank you, Chairman. The Economic Development does not have a report.
Thank you, Mr. Ed. Operations and Administrative Committee. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do not have a report this evening. There will be a meeting next Thursday regarding the census of the districting status on that.
Thank you. Next up, Public Works Committee, Mr. Fasoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our Public Works Committee has a handful of items this evening. First of which is Resolution 21-011, resolution authorizing the award of a bid for bridge deck sealing at various locations throughout the county, cost of $27,499.88.
You have a motion, you have a second. Mr. Webster. Discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Clerk Gamal, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Phillips. Mr. Booker. Mr. Nikita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Yes.
Mr. Durrell.
Yes.
Gorel.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Wed.
Yes.
Mr. Salgado.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena.
Yes.
Yes.
Clerk Gamal, the item passes.
Next item on the agenda here is Resolution 21-012. It's a resolution authorizing the award of a bid for 2021 PCC piping program, cost $99,737.
We have a motion, second by Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Westcott. Discussion? Okay. Hearing and seeing none. Clerk Gamal, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bucita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Yes.
Mr. Durrell.
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Wed.
Yes.
Mr. Salgado.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena.
Yes.
Mr. Village. Mr. Chairman, 20 yes.
Thank you, Clerk Gamal, the item passes. Mr. Zonin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is Resolution 21-013. The resolution authorizing the award of a bid for 2021 township seal coating, no cost to the county. This is dispatch dollars administered for townships. I so move.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second? Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Lindmark. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Clerk Gamal, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bucita. Crosby. Ms. Sellers.
Yes.
Mr. Durrell.
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Wed.
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Rena,
Yes.
Mr. Billick, Mr. Booker.
Thank you, Clerk Trammell. The item passes. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda here is Resolution 21-014. The resolution authorizing the award of a bid for bulk rock salt. Total cost of $2,468,000 and some change. Window County's cost is $1.152. And I would say move and speak to that.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second? Mr. Navers, Mr. Bill. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you see, it's 76.85 a ton this year. I'd like to just give a shout out to Mr. Molina and his staff there at the County Highway Department. This is a couple dollars less a ton than we were paying last year. The additional in the total cost there is other municipalities that partner up with us. There's a cost saving on the amount of purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Clerk Trammell, please call the roll.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mrs. Crosby, Sellers,
Yes.
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Goral,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Wed,
yes,
Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Pistoni,
Yes.
Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Rena,
Yes.
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Vecchia. That's that, Mr. Chairman, that's 20 yes.
Thank you, Clerk Trammell. The item passes. Mr. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next item is Resolution 21-015, resolution authorizing the execution of an engineering services agreement with Effective Management Decisions LLC to conduct a facilities-based needs assessment for improvements at the Highway Department. Budgeted cost of $34,500. Speak to the record.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second? Mr. Navers? Mr. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did speak a little bit in depth of this at office, and I'd just like to reiterate for some that may not have been there. This is a budgeted item for to get us an assessment of the county, what the needs might be for down the line. Some of you may or may not be aware that the large majority of the equipment is housed outside in the atmosphere. Not good for project to trying to get the work out of long term. I would just like to say, keep in mind that sometime in the near future, we'll be looking at so that there's a need for some type of growing facility.
Okay, Mr. Tony, is there any further discussion? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, Clerk Trammell, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Ms. Sellers,
Yes.
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Mrs. Goral,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Wed,
yes,
Mr. Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tony,
Yes.
Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Rena,
Yes.
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Vecchia, Mrs. Crosby. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Clerk Trammell. The item passes. Mr. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final resolution of the evening is 21-016. It's a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the village of McChesney Park and the city of Oak Park for cost sharing for the operation and maintenance of the Sage Stream Gauge and the Rock River at Lakeland Road Bridge. I would so move and ask Mr. McDonald to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. We have a motion. Can I have a second? Thank you, that is the floor. McDonald?
I did speak to this at caucus. If anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to address them. I do live on the river. I understand the importance of the Latham Gauge. It's a tool that the sheriff uses to decide if the rivers at no wake are closed. We're doing great this year, but with the flooding and things like that, it's really important for the property owners along the river, that we maintain the river to proper heights and do everything that we can to prevent property damage and speed.
McDonald, are there any additional questions or discussions on this item? Okay, hearing and seeing none, clerk Marl, please call the roll.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Gurl,
Yes.
Mrs. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Webb,
yes,
Mr. Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tony,
Yes.
Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Arena,
Yes,
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Vikita, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Fellers,
we didn't hear you.
Ms.
Ms. Fowler.
Fellers,
Yes.
thank you. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, clerk Marl, the item passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes your report.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Next up, Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, Mr. Gurl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Gurl. Okay, unfinished business. First are two items in Finance Committee, Mr. Salgado.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to indefinitely table the two resolutions, SB 1721 and SB 2278. And I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Just for clarity, the proper parliamentary procedure on that one is table.
Postpone indefinitely.
So, with your permission, Mr. Salgado will amend that. to
Yes.
postpone indefinitely.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to postpone indefinitely items A and B on the Finance Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? For this opportunity to discuss it. Need? Okay, seeing and hearing none, clerk Marl, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with Mrs. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Webb,
yes,
Mr. Salgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Tony, Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Arena,
Yes,
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Vikita, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Fellers,
Yes.
Mr. Gurl,
Yes.
20 yes, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, clerk Marl, the motion passes. The second for postponed indefinitely. Moving on, under unfinished business appointments. We have three different boards. If there's no objection from any board member, I'd like to take these all together to vote for approval. No objections, I'll read them to the record. Appointment A, Community Action Agency, one-year appointment, Dorothy Red. B, 911 EPSD, three-year appointment, Don Carlson. Item C, the Board of Review, a two-year appointment, Pamela Cunningham and Jay Galvin. Do I have can I have a motion? Motion by
Yes.
Crosby, second by
Second.
Mr. Bell. There's discussion. Okay, seeing and hearing none, clerk Marl, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Neighbors, Mrs. Webb,
am I allowed to vote?
If you choose to abstain, you may on item A1.
I abstain on item A1. I abstain on item A1.
Okay. Hold on, Ms. Red. We take them all together. We would have to separate out. Okay. Ms. Red, would you like us to separate these items and we vote so that you can abstain?
No, I'll vote then. I'll vote.
You'll vote?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Red. Yes, she votes yes on it.
Mr. Salgado,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tassoni, Mr. Webster, Mr. Lescott, Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Village, Mr. Booker, Mr. Ikeda, Mrs. Crosby, Ms. Sellers,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Mrs. Boral.
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk O'Malley. The appointments are approved. New business. Is there any new business to be brought before the board? Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you. You're gonna hear from me again on this issue, and again, and again, and again, until we get somewhere with this. Spoke to our state's attorney the other day, about some pending things we have coming before. But then once again, I brought up the issue of the federal government not stepping up to the plate and doing the job that they're supposed to do, the whole laws that they made. I think you all know I'm talking about gun laws, particularly felon in possession. The interesting thing is, one of the interesting things is the other day, I heard from Mr. Tassoni, who let me know that in the Northern District in New York, their federal attorney there, their chief lead attorney there, made a statement he would prosecute every gun law that came before them in their district. So I mentioned that to Mr. Hanlon as well. So I said, what and more can we possibly do to get the feds to step up to the plate and do the job that they're supposed to do? Because he on his own can't prompt them strongly enough to get them to do the right thing. I don't think any of our former state attorneys could. And so you have one area of the country where the lead attorney is willing to do the job he was hired to do, prosecute every single one. For us, our neck of the woods here, noted as by the FBI as being the most violent community per capita, and we can't get them to do the right thing for us. So to that end, I asked him to give me the list of every federal authority we should be contacting, every state authority from top on down. I'd like to get Mr. Girl to help me with this, because I'm going to get a resolution put together that we send a letter, a very firm letter, saying that we want to get something done. We want some action. They come to us there with this latest thing here that they want to have there with the Project Safe Neighborhoods, Project Guardian Initiative and all this. And to me, this is another deal of smoke and mirrors. They talk about it, but they don't do a damn thing. But I'm tired of this. We've got these federal officials that are not doing the job they're supposed to do. Now, whether their hands are tied for reasons we don't know, I don't know. But I'd like to put the pressure from the top down to get us some answers on this, because we talk about this health pandemic that we're in. We're in a gun pandemic. That's what we're in here. So if you're a lawful gun owner, you're being persecuted for being a lawful gun owner. On the other hand, they're not doing anything, very little, not nearly enough, about illegal gun owners. Making some more laws that will affect legal gun owners, but don't do a damn thing. The illegal running. I hope if I come up with this resolution, Bert can run it through his committee, and you will all get behind me with this. That's the end of my rant about this.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Ms. Crosby.
Good.
I agree with Mr. Webster. However, I think we need to start with a resolution going to Bustos, Durbin, Duckworth, and Susan. That's it. Just go to resolution. Fully agree.
This, thank you for your report on this, and there'll be a laundry list of people that will get a CC on this. We need to keep putting the pressure on them. Get something done, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Is there any other items of new business? Okay, none. Announcements and communications. Clerk, come out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The items listed below were received as correspondence.
Okay, with that, Mr. McCarthy.
Day holiday. We have to remember Monday, what it truly is and what it's all about. And that's for our freedom here in America and those that gave and sacrificed their lives, whether it be during wartime or peacetime. So let's remember why Monday, most of us have it off from work. And me, every day, I thank God that I'm an American citizen and we are living in the best country on the face of the earth. So let's continue to support and pray for our military and those on the front lines today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Any other announcements from the board members? Okay, Thompson, anything from you or staff?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. With that, on to adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Village, Mr. Dupuy, and Mr. Hoffman. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you all. Have a good evening.